Welcome to Monday. It's the 14th day of March 2022, your day weather podcast sponsored exclusively by Cowboy State Daily, Wyoming's news authority. Visit them at cowboystatedaily.com and on their Facebook page. Well, as we start a new week, it's going to be more typical March weather coming. Over the last week, we had to deal with a lot of severe cold and a lot of winter weather and then wind. But no Arctic chill this week. Temperatures are going to be a lot more moderate. It's going to feel a little bit more like March out there. We saw that over the weekend, but we had to deal with the wind. We don't see it as windy as well. But we do have a disorganized storm system coming through Wednesday and Thursday. It's going to bring kind of a hodgepodge of weather to the western United States. There's going to be a little bit of spotty precipitation in many areas. However, parts of Colorado could see some decent precipitation. When you get disorganized storms, you tend to see the precipitation kind of in patches, a patch of moisture here, a patch of moisture there. So some of you get wet and white, some of you do not. And that'll keep our temperatures moderately cool to moderately mild here for the next 5 to 7 days. Now, we have another storm system arriving late in the weekend and early next week. We need to watch it because it's the type of system that we see this time of year that can come off the west coast and then re-intensify as it crosses the Rockies. And it's one of those March storms you always have to kind of keep an eye on, as they could be big weather makers. There's another system likely coming behind it mid to late next week. So while the Arctic chill is going away, the active weather pattern is not. Although I don't see during the next 5 days the storm system coming through as being an intense one. We could have a couple of systems next week that do bear watching. Here's today's upper level charts. We see high pressure coming in behind a small little wave. They came in late yesterday and last night. This little low here disorganized. It did produce a little bit of snow in the high country and a few showers on the plains, but it's going to head into the Midwest, and high pressure here is going to come in off the west coast, and this is going to help pump in some milder Pacific air here to start the week. So temperatures here aren't going to be bad. In fact, this is the 7-day temperature average between today through this upcoming Sunday. So you can still see in the basins of the west, it's still going to be a little bit cooler than average, and this is due to that organized storm system, but nothing terribly cold. And then a nice Chinook and a nice warm up east of the divide for a lot of the nation, a much more milder stretch of weather for sure. Temperatures are going to be a lot closer to average. And in the Intermountain West and the Western High Plains, that means temperatures in the 40s and 50s. That's where our average temperatures are now this time of year. As we go into midweek, it doesn't look like much, does it? That's because it's disorganized. But this trough right here, coming through late Wednesday and Thursday, will move across Utah and into Colorado, and it's kind of coming in pieces. There's a little bit of a piece of energy here, a little piece of energy right here, and it's just not a storm that can get its act together. But it is going to produce spotty precipitation here in the Pacific Northwest, not bad moisture at all, into the mountains of Idaho and Montana. You can see this little concentrated area of yellow right here. Right around Denver, Colorado Springs, Palmer Divide area, the central mountains of Colorado. This area could have some activity as the southern part of the low does have a good amount of Pacific moisture with it. So this area right here, we kind of need to watch, as it will produce rain and snow as we get into mid to late in the week. So we'll keep an eye on that. Generally spotty, disorganized precipitation elsewhere. Here's that snow potential. You can see that it's going to actually be rain out here on the plains, but you get up higher, Palmer Divide, Denver, Colorado Springs, back into the I-70 corridor here into the high country. We'll need to keep an eye on that. A little bit of snow in the Rockies, Montana, Idaho, and Montana, and Wyoming, and the Pacific Northwest and Utah, but nothing to write home about. Now, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. This is by Monday morning, so a week from today. We have a high pressure ridge building in the eastern Pacific, but you can see it. You can see that low here in northern New Mexico, closed low beginning to form, and a high pressure in the southeastern United States, bookending the low pressure here. And then we've got this next wave up here behind it that will kick this one out to the northeast. This one comes in behind it. If we get a system like this, if it does become better organized in that New Mexico Four Corners area, this could end up being a weather maker for the front range of Colorado, Wyoming, into western Nebraska, western Kansas, in the form of rain, snow, and thunder. A classic type of March storm, the type you see this time of year. And these do tend to be good weather makers, and they do tend to produce good amounts of moisture if they come together. And you can see it here. There's a swath here of heavier moisture on the northwest side of this. This is going to be rain and potential thunderstorm activity out ahead of it. Again, this is a week ahead, so put it with a question mark, but we're watching it for you. This is what the snow potential looks like if it comes together. Again, take it with a grain of salt, but we're going to watch it for you. Here's the next system coming behind by next Wednesday and Thursday as the main low kicks up into the Great Lakes. This comes back to a cold northwest flow again right here. And if that happens, that brings cold, moist air back into the central and northern Rockies, and we could, by the end of March, revert right back to a cold, wet pattern again, which would be good for the moisture, but it could also make the end of March trend colder. And here it is. This is by March 25th, next Friday. So we're going to keep an eye on things, even though we're going to trend towards mild, more spring-like weather here this week. Winter is probably still going to throw us some curveballs before March or April is over. Thanks for tuning in to the Day Weather Podcast. We'll update you on Tuesday. Have a good Monday.